be a hater of mankind and engrossed with material things. He can be just or cruel. These actions and these deeds are subject to the control and will of man himself. Consequently, he is responsible for them. Now, another question arises. Man is absolutely helpless and dependent, since might and power belong especially to God. Both exaltation and humiliation depend upon the good pleasure and the will of the Most High. I want to say that one again. Yeah. Both exaltation and humiliation depend upon the good pleasure and the will of the Most High.
Darrell, can I stop you there for a moment?
Yes, of course.
Because again, this is rather, I think on the surface it can come across as being rather simple, but to me it's actually rather, again, kind of complex. I'll admit I'm one of those people, I think it's probably from my upbringing, always looking for simple answers to spiritual problems. In fact, I was surprised when Abdu'l-Baha here says, in the second passage here, this question is one of the most important and abstruse of divine problems. I don't think I've ever read those two words used together before. Divine problems. Like, even when it comes to divinity, you're going to have some issues, challenges, if you want to call them that. But it's like certain things, those are just the conditions. You got to accept them. You can't change them. Those things are going to be. To which man is forced and compelled. Sleep. Try going a long time without sleeping. Death. Nobody's escaped it yet. Sickness. Decline of power. And I get that as the aging process, where no matter what you do, you can take all your supplements, you can go to the gym every day, and all those help, but you will still decline, over time, as if you're blessed enough to live to an old age. You're not going to be that strapping 25-year-old that you once were, no matter how hard you try. You might be a great 80-year-old, but not, you're still there's going to be that decline and so forth. So it's just that there are certain conditions that they're just a part of life.
Right.
But then.
That's God's will.
Yes, that's God's will.
That's God's will.
Yes.
The other side of this coin has to do with man's will and what man does. Yeah. What the material world, good and evil, a lover of God, a philanthropist, those are all things that are part of man's will and things that he can choose to do. And occupy his time with, but the overarching will is always God's.
Yeah. So I just thought that, like I said, maybe this isn't as complex as I think it is, but to me, I keep looking at that dichotomy of, okay, certain things go in the column of this is all God's will, nothing you can do about it except those conditions, and use them as a point of growing into being a good human being as you are dealing with those unchanging conditions and the choices you're making. What choices are you making, etc. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit. Please continue.
No, please. I'll let you.
You want me to continue?
Yes, please.
The inaction or the movement of man, depend upon the assistance of God. Wow. The inaction or the movement of man, whichever one, inaction or movement, depend upon the assistance of God. If he's not aided, he's not able to do either good or evil.
Stop. Say that again.
The inaction or the movement of man depend upon the assistance of God. If he is not aided, he is not able to do either good or evil.
So the overarching will here again is God's.
Yeah. But when the help of existence comes from the generous Lord, he is able to do both. He, meaning man, but when the help of existence comes from the generous Lord, he is able to do both good and evil. We got choices.
Right.
But if the help is cut off, if the help of the Lord is cut off, he remains, he meaning man, he remains absolutely helpless. This is why in the holy books they speak of the help and assistance of God. So this condition is like that of a ship, which is moved by the power of the wind or steam. If this power ceases, the ship cannot move at all. And of course, today it would be also nuclear power, but whatever is the source of energy. If this power ceases, the ship cannot move at all. Nevertheless, the rudder of the ship turns it to either side, and the power of the steam moves it in the desired direction.
I get it.
Say that again?
I get it.
Yeah.
But what is difficult to understand here is that God gives assistance to man to do good or evil.
Yeah.
Good or evil.
And that's not saying God wants you to do evil. It's just like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like the assistance you're given, it's like it's a neutral thing. It's there. What you do with it is up to you.
Okay, I accept that.
Okay, like the wind is just the wind. If you decide you want to go east, like Abdul-Baha points out, you turn your rudder a particular way. The wind is just the wind. You decide what direction you want that wind to carry you in, by which way you turn your rudder. God gives us all the assistance to, let's say, live, to have the physical living experience that we've talked about before, the corporeal experience. What do you do with that?
Good example.
Yeah. So, nevertheless, the rudder of the ship turns it to either side, and the power of the steam moves it in the desired direction. If it is directed to the east, it goes to the east. If it is directed to the west, it goes to the west. This motion does not come from the ship. No, it comes from the wind or the steam. So the motion is pushed by the steam. What direction you go into, well, those are the decisions you have to make.
Right.
In the same way, in all the action or inaction of man, he received power from the help of God. But the choice of good or evil belongs to the man himself. So, if a king should appoint someone to be the governor of a city, and should grant him the power of authority, and should show him the paths of justice and injustice according to the laws, if then this governor should commit injustice, although he should act by the authority and power of the king, the latter would be absolved from injustice. That's one of those complex kinds of statements. I'm going to say it again. If a king should appoint someone to the governor of a city and should grant him the power of authority and should show him the paths of justice and injustice according to the laws, if then this governor should commit injustice, although he should act by the, and I'm going to insert a couple of the words, although he should act by the authority and power of the king, the latter, meaning the king, would be absolved from injustice. He just gave the man the power to make decisions. He is absolved from the injustice that this governor may commit. But if he, the governor, if he should act with justice, he would do it also through the authority of the king, who would be pleased and satisfied. If he should act with justice, he would do it also through the authority of the king, who would be pleased and satisfied. That is to say, though the choice of good and evil belongs to man, under all circumstances, he is dependent upon the sustaining help of life, which comes from the omnipotent. And it's like he's saying, I'm going to give you some power. What you do with that power is up to you.
Yeah.
I think you want to do a song, don't you?
I think so.
No, that's not right. We know it's not sounding good. I really did practice this. There we go. That better. Well, I don't know where I'm going. I just know I'm gonna follow my Lord. Said I don't know where I'm going. I just know I'm gonna follow my Lord. From the sunrise through the darkness, I just know I'm gonna follow my Lord. In the valley, cross the river, I just know I'm gonna follow my Lord. And I don't know where I'm going now, but I know I'm gonna follow him anyhow, because I know he's gonna lead me where his blessings flow. I'm gonna follow my Lord. I'll be praying, meditating every day. I'm gonna follow my Lord. When I'm feasting, when I'm fasting, will I know I'm gonna follow my Lord. And I don't know where I'm going now, but I know I'm gonna follow him anyhow, because I know he's gonna lead me where his blessings flow. I'm gonna follow my Lord. I'm gonna follow him. Gonna follow him. started playing the wrong song. It's like you hit the first couple of notes and like, wait a minute, that's not right. Okay, well, maybe, but we got it. That was good there. It's been a long, long, long time since he's heard that. So, and then to not start it off right, it was like, wait a minute, what are you doing? Okay, to continue. Daryl, you want to start?
Question. If God has knowledge of an action which will be performed by someone, and it has been written on the tablet of fate, is it possible to resist it? Let me ask the question again. If God has knowledge of an action which will be performed by someone, and it has been written on the tablet of fate, is it possible to resist it? The answer. The foreknowledge of a thing is not the cause of its realization. You can know ahead, but it's not the cause of its realization. For the essential knowledge of God surrounds, in the same way, the realities of things before as well as after their existence, and it does not become the cause of their existence. It is a perfection of God.
Daryl, you cannot continue without you got to get that again, please.
Okay, for the essential knowledge of God surrounds in the same way the realities of things before as well as after their existence. It does not become the cause of their existence. It is a perfection of God. The hidden secrets of the future were revealed to the prophets, and they thus became acquainted with the future events which they announced. The hidden secrets of the future were revealed to the prophets, not to you and me, to the prophets. And they thus became acquainted with the future events which they announced. Every prophet has talked about what's coming to the world of being. This knowledge and these prophecies were not the cause of the occurrences. For example, tonight everyone knows that after 7 hours, the sun will rise, but this general foreknowledge does not cause the rising and appearance of the sun. The mathematicians, by astronomical calculations, know that at a certain time, an eclipse of the moon or the sun will occur. Surely, this discovery is not the cause, does not cause the eclipse to take place. The mathematicians, by astronomical calculations, know that at a certain time, an eclipse of the moon or the sun will occur. Surely this discovery does not cause the eclipse to take place. This is, of course, only an analogy and not an exact image. Will ye not comprehend? This same truth have been revealed in all the scriptures, if ye be of them that understand. Every act ye meditate is as clear to him as that act when already accomplished. Thus, foreknowledge of God, however, should not be regarded as having caused the actions of men, just as your own previous knowledge that a certain event is to occur or your desire that it should happen is not and can never be the reason for its occurrence.
So you still can't blame some outside force, whether it's God or anything else. Because,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I like the fact that in that passage by Abdu'l-Baha, he uses, a scientific example. Because let's face it, before the development of science, there were those people that thought if someone had special knowledge of something, then they had magic or whatever. But Abdu'l-Baha uses or a mathematical, I should say, mathematical example. The mathematicians, by astronomical calculations, know that at a certain time an eclipse of the moon or the sun will occur. But just knowing it, as we already pointed out, has already been pointed out here.
That's right. Doesn't make it happen.
It doesn't make it happen. I'm looking again at how Allah says here. He says, will ye not comprehend? Doesn't sound like You still don't get it.
Right.
You still don't understand. Okay, here we go. This same truth has been revealed in all the scriptures. If ye be of them that understand, every act ye meditate is as clear to him being God, as is that act when already accomplished.
You know, there's so many ways that we assign the will of God to certain things.
Yeah.
And in a very human, in a very human sense, we assign the will of God, and we do it kind of jokingly when we talk about things like Murphy's laws. You know, if you don't believe that God has a sense of humor, plant something. You know, I mean, we say that Murphy follows me around all the time. You know, anything that can go wrong will. You know, so but these are ways of us assigning the will of God to things that we have absolutely no control over.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah. And it also points out that just because the will of God includes the will of what you're going to do,
right,
you still can't say that your personal decisions were driven and are totally the responsibility of God. Just because God knows doesn't mean he takes your free will away from you.
That's right.
Okay. So I just feel that that's important to point out, because if we don't, I don't know, it's just one of those things that, you know, I think if we don't look at it and make sure we understand that clearly, it's still easy to kind of absolve ourselves of the responsibility of our own bad decisions. You know, absolve ourselves. You know, it's God's will that I screwed up. Not necessarily, no. And then Baha'u'llah goes on to say, no.
Jack?
We have someone here.
This was Gilbert. Just wanted to point out something related to what you said. The alignment of our action and decisions with or against the Holy Spirit, or writing of the manifestation, is the culprit in terms of determining the outcome.
Oh.
Random will of God that knows what we're gonna do. That's completely different. God doesn't interfere at all in your decision making.
Right.
I love that Gilbert interjected there.
Right. Thank you, Gilbert.
Yes.
Sorry.
I see your name pop up there all the time, and I know that, you know, I think it was last week or a whole week before, I pointed out there are some people that are more deepened in the writings. And Gilbert is so humble, but he's one of those people.
Right.
Thank you so much, Gilbert. Baha'u'llah goes on to say, know thou that the decrees of the sovereign ordainer, as related to fate and predestination, are of two kinds. Both are to be obeyed and accepted. The decrees of the sovereign ordainer, that being God, as related to fate and predestination, are of two kinds. Both are to be obeyed and accepted. The one is irrevocable. The other, as termed by men, impending. To the former, the one that is irrevocable, all must unreservedly submit, inasmuch as it is fixed and settled. Okay. You can stop me anytime.
No, go ahead.
To the former, all must unreservedly submit, inasmuch as it is fixed and settled. God, however,
that confirms what Gilbert just said.
Exactly. God, however, is able to alter or repeal it. Okay. My interpretation of that, when it comes to God, absolutely nothing is etched in stone. You know, but only when it comes to God. God, however, is able to alter or repeal it, as the harm that must result from such a change will be greater than if the decree oh my goodness. I'm sorry, I know what this is going to say, and I got excited the first time I read it. As the harm that must result from such a change will be greater than if the decree had remained unaltered, all therefore should willingly acquiesce in what God hath willed, and confidently abide by the same. Sometimes we don't like or are not comfortable with the will of God, and yet it is still in our own best interests.
Right.
It's like I've heard, and I'm sure you've heard for years, a lot of times we pray for things. Every prayer is answered, but sometimes the answer is no. Yeah. God, as the harm that must result from such a change, when we want things to be different from the will of God, as the harm that must result from such a change will be greater than if the decree had remained unaltered, all therefore should willingly acquiesce, give your will over to God, should willingly acquiesce in what God hath willed, and confidently abide by the same. The decree that is impending, however, is such that prayer and entreaty can succeed in averting it. There are some things that we can affect with prayer, and others that we cannot, or at least where the outcome won't be in accordance with our desires. Now, you want to go ahead and continue?
Yeah, let's do a song.
Okay.
I think it's time for a song.
This is another one we haven't done in a long time. This song is called Test Over. Right now you're wondering why life has to be so rough. You say you've had enough. Your spirit, you say if there's a God above, this test are just too tough. You feel like giving up. Start to wonder just what's the point in believing. Isn't yourself you're deceiving? With all the prayers you sent up, is anybody receiving? Seems like there's no relieving you. But then just over, you're done. Looks like you made it through another one. Just over, God brought you through. Looks like another prayer was answered for you. You gotta understand, God wants you to be strong. Sometimes you'll suffer long. Your spirit could be weak if every day was a song. No learning right from wrong. How could you ever grow to be your best if all you did was rest? How could you learn to stop the Lord wants you to be blessed if life never had a test? But then just over, you're done. Looks like you made it through another one. Just over, God brought you through. Looks like another prayer was answered for you. For you. You're like a fire desire, fall with fire. With fire he tests the gold, and with gold he tests his servant. But then just over, you're done. Looks like you made it through another one. Test over, God brought you through. Looks like another prayer was answered for you. That's right, test over, you're done. Looks like you made it through another one. Test over, God brought you through. Looks like another prayer was answered for you. Just over, just over, just over, just over. I'm a little scatterbrained.
A little strange.
I'm a little scatterbrained.
All right. To go on. Fate is of two kinds. One is decreed, the other is conditional or impending. The decreed fate is that which cannot change or be altered, and conditional fate is that which may occur. So for this lamp, the decreed fate is that the oil burns and will be consumed. Therefore, its eventual extinction is a decree which it is impossible to alter or change because it is a decreed fate. In the same way, in the body of a man, a power of life has been created. And as soon as it is destroyed and ended, the body will certainly be decomposed. So when the oil in this lamp is burnt and finished, the lamp will undoubtedly become extinguished. But conditional fate may be likened to this. While there is still oil, a violent wind blows on the lamp, which extinguishes it. This is a conditional fate. It is wise to avoid it, to protect oneself from it, to be cautious and circumspect. But the decreed fate, which is like the finishing of the oil in the lamp, cannot be altered, changed, or delayed. It must happen. It is inevitable that this lamp will become extinguished.
Comments?
I think it's pretty clear. You know?
What's the difference between decreed fate and what is the other?
Well,
decreed fate and conditional fate.
One's conditional or impending, the other is inalterable.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Okay. So one, it's going to happen. You can't get around it. Again, it's like aging. It's like those things that are just a part of living this life. You can't get around it.
It's going to happen. You can't change it.
But it doesn't release you from the responsibilities of making your own decisions.
Right.
Yeah. It says, but conditional fate may be likened to this. While there's still oil, a violent wind blows on the lamp, which extinguishes it. This is a conditional fate. In other words, if you had taken the necessary measures, you could have kept that lamp from being blown out by the violent wind.
Right.
It's wise to avoid it, to protect oneself from it, to be cautious and circumspect. There are certain things you just should not do.
Right.
But the decreed fate, which is like the finishing of the oil in the lamp, cannot be altered, changed, or delayed. It must happen. It is inevitable that the lamp will become extinguished. So when it comes to these things, free will, fate, and predestination, certain things are predestined. Certain things are your will.
Change.
God knows it all, and just because God knows it doesn't mean that God makes it all happen. You have some responsibility.
That's right.
And there are consequences when we do things that are just, let's just say, bad decisions. Some things we can't avoid, but when we know that there are certain things we should avoid, like that example again with the lamp and the wind. Well, then, sometimes I hate to say you get what you deserve, because that's not the right way of looking at it. But there are certain things that are predictable, likely, probable, if we make certain decisions. And that's for the good or for the bad.
Right.
Yeah. And we need to always remember that. I guess when we talk about
there's a song here in all of this somewhere that says that God says, I will be the wind if you will be the rudder.
Ooh.
So I think there's a song there somewhere. And maybe one day we'll write that song.
Yeah, maybe
we haven't written it yet.
Maybe one day I'll practice it before we play it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, I practice it. I really do practice that song. I don't know what's going on with me today. But we're at that time now where anyone who would like to offer up a prayer or reading or passage or song of your choice, this is